Child, it's only by the grace of God that I'm here right now. Okay. You know how the adult life can be. Okay. Oh,
Won't he do it?
welcome to the second episode of the Black Woman Podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Karryll.
And I'm Dominique.
And in today's episode, we'll be discussing friendships that develop into sisterhoods. We'll also talk about how we were dubbed the name Doublemint twins in middle and high school, and how we've explored friendships with women from various backgrounds. So let's get started, and I hope you enjoyed this episode.
Yay! So we're here. Here we are. How you feeling, Karryll? Besides the pollen, how are you feeling?
I guess I am feeling good. I feel like we got a lot of great responses and reception to our first episode. So I want to say thank you to everyone again for the love and support for our first episode. And here we are back to do it again. How are you feeling?
Oh my gosh, I'm feeling excited. I'll be honest, I felt a little nervous this morning because I was like, we came out and exploded with our first episode, and now the work begins.
Yeah.
Like now we have to really sink our heels in, and I know that the upcoming episodes are going to be a little edgy for some people to hear and for us to talk about. So I think now, because we're moving forward, I'm like, this is it. Strap on your bootstraps.
And you know how I am. My hands are sweating right now, y'all. My hands are sweating, and my armpits are stinky.
Sweating. And then she had to tell us that. Like,
I just had to be transparent.
You should always be transparent with us and our listeners. And you know what I would say to that? Take some yoga breaths. Let's take 3 of them together. Ready? Through your nose.
All right.
2 more. One more. All right.
Y'all, we just had a mini yoga class on a recording for the episode.
Okay, so Doublemint twins journey.
Yes.
That began, I want to say 7th grade, like end of 7th grade, 8th grade is when I remember the term coming out. What about you? Does that sound about right?
To me, I didn't remember middle school. I thought it was high school, but you said it was middle school, but I feel like it probably was, because that's when we started like hanging out, tough.
Yes, I just remember us hanging out, like solidifying our friendship, really end of 7th grade. And then 8th grade, like halfway through, maybe it was that time period where Doublemint twins started coming out more and more. And I remember feeling, when I first heard it, I was like, Doublemint twins? Like, I thought of that commercial where, do y'all remember the Doublemint chewing gum?
Yes.
I thought of that commercial, and I was like, oh, Karryll and I could be on that commercial. But I felt, at the same time, I felt so seen because I had not had, like, I don't have any sisters. I have all brothers. I'm the oldest. And I felt so seen because I was like, wow, here's this Black girl who's like me. And we both have glasses on, and we both are quirky and like to laugh. And they're saying that I'm like her. Like, I felt like it was a compliment and I was like, okay, I loved it from day one.
Yes. Yes.
What do you think about it?
I thought it was befitting. I we were best friends since 7th grade, even though y'all, when I first met Dominique, she was basically ignoring me. And I remember, was it in the cafeteria? I tried to get you because you had just transferred from, what was it, St. Thomas?
St. Thomas is private
St.
school.
Thomas to Tappan Middle School. Yes. And I was like, oh, she seems like she's cool, like fun, and somebody I can hang out with. And I remember being in the cafeteria and I kind of waved at you to be like, come sit next to me. And you looked right past me and went and sat with some other girls. We will not get into that.
Okay, in my defense, y'all.
Ain't no defense.
I was exploring myself as a Black girl, right? And so I was coming from an all-white environment, and this is why it's so important to have people around you that look like you. Because my experience started with leaving an all-white environment, private school, private Catholic school, and transitioning into a public school where there's so many different belief systems. Like, I was exposed to so many different things. And in my mind, I was like, I have to prove my Blackness to myself. And so I gravitated towards like I say this in love, the Blackest kids that I could find, meaning the kids who were super rough, the kids who they were doing questionable things all the time, but I just felt so loved by that because I was like, it was almost like I wasn't joining a gang, but it was in that sense where I ignored what wasn't right about what they were doing because I felt like these are my people. And the only way for me to show that I'm Black is to go to the Blackest group I could find.
She ignored me. And so
that's how it started. And I unintentionally ignored her because I was just looking around to be liked. And that was the group that was like, hey, come on over here. I mean, who knows what was happening really? Like, they were just products of their environment. And I don't know, they may have seen me and was like, oh, we could kind of groom her. Not saying that that's what they were thinking, but it could have been that. And to Karryll, to speak to what Karryll just said, she did come and rescue me, and she didn't hold that against me. Her, because about a month and a half in, I started to see my friends differently. And I was like, I don't think they're looking out for me all the time. And some of the things they were doing were questionable. And I was like, okay, I got to get out of here quick. Got to get out quick. And then Karryll swooped in, and she didn't hold it against me. And she was like,
I did not. And we were inseparable ever since.
Very true.
If you saw me, you saw her. And even to this day, like when we see people that we knew from high school, middle school, they're like, oh, do you still talk to Dominique? Like, that's the first person that they think of when they see me. Or like with Dominique is, you still see Karryll.
Yes.
And, like
Karryll, you've been living in North Carolina for how long now?
6 years,
6 years, you guys. To this day, when I see people out from high school, the first question is, how Karryll doing? Like, I'm her representation. And when I go to events, they'll be like, I haven't seen Karryll in a while. What's she up to? I give an answer that we both agree on because Karryll doesn't want everyone to know what she's up to.
That was just my secret now.
Oh yes, they're, but they half the time they don't know because I just say it with love. I'm like, she's doing X, Y, and Z. But Karryll's right. It's like, and Karryll, speaking of that, shoot, we should have been selling this podcast back in 8th grade. Their brains, like, when you see Karryll, you see Dominique. When you see Dominique, you see Karryll. So, yeah.
Yes. So I think that's a perfect segue into the first question that I think we should talk about, or first, topic. So how would you say your friendships grew into sisterhood?
Oh my gosh, I am so grateful for the sisters, the friends that I had. Granted, all of them were not good at, I ran into some bad apples. And when I say bad apples, I think it's always like a mirror. It's a representation of myself. I was probably a bad apple at some point. But man, they were just organic and they felt good. And laughter is a huge component for me. Like in my friendships, if you can make me laugh, if we can laugh together, then that means we're going to find depth, we're going to find vulnerability. And that's how they grew. That's how they grew into sisterhood, because through our laughter, we were shedding tears. Through our laughter, we were finding, man, our parents are similar, our upbringings are similar. And so it was very organic. It was never, I never felt forced in any of my friendships that are now sisterhoods, or yeah, that are considered sisterhoods to me now. I never felt like they were forced. They always started genuinely and just continued from there. And I am so grateful for that. How about your friendships?
Well, before I get into mine, I would even like add to your, and I know I can't do this, but I'm about to do it anyway. I feel like, I hate the cliche saying like some people are here for a season, but I
Yes.
really do feel like that for you and myself, that we had friendships or well, I wouldn't say sisters, but like friendships who were here for a season. And then, we thought it could have been a sisterhood, but then it just kind of went its separate ways and maybe we grew apart.
Yes.
But I would say, like, when I thought about this question, I thought of like the time period, like the time when I knew, I was like, you know what, these are like more, like these women are more than just friends to me, like they're sisters. So going through high school and even college, I would consider people like my friends, and even some of my friends who were in college, they would refer to me like, yeah, man, like that's like my sister. And I was very, I guess you could say, guarded with words or labels that would tap into I'm trying to figure out the word. But like I was very guarded when it came to using the word sister, because I was so,
yeah,
like, if you're not my sister, then like you're not family. But after college, and I realized I had like a reflection period where, and it wasn't intentional, it just kind of happened, where I was like, you know what? These women are going to be with me forever. Like I feel like we got to a certain threshold and it was just like, okay, you made it. We just going to be together. You stuck with me.
You're stuck with me.
Yes. And so I would say it was really after I graduated from college, I was able to reflect on the fact that I was still friends with you, Diana, Danielle, Dominique, Alex, like so many of my friends from undergrad and in high school. And I just kind of felt like, you know what, these are my sisters. Like we got past the point of just hanging out, having fun together, to where we started having depth in our relationships. And I even started having depth in my relationships in undergrad, because there were some things that I was privy to that I didn't realize I was until I got older and reflected back, like personal relationships that my friends had with their family members, where I was there to kind of support them through, maneuvering and transitioning with their relationships with their family members. Even relationships, like being there to support my friends through hard times when, they were dealing with stuff that was, not ideal. And so for me, it was when we got past like I guess you could say like the honeymoon stage, and it became real, like we were dealing with real life stuff, And so that's kind of when I felt like my friendships were sisterhoods. And even today, like I never really thought that, like I thought when you go through high school, then college, then, okay, that's your group of friends. But you can still develop friendships into adulthood. In my mind, I wasn't thinking like, we could do that, but it's happened. And I love the fact, and I love the fact that my friendships in adulthood have happened organically, because I'm not somebody who you can just, let's be friends. I'm like,
right.
No, I got to see you got you're gonna have to go through the honeymoon stage and then get to that threshold where it's like, okay, you my sister now.
Exactly.
So
I love what you said. Like, I love how you broke that down, because it made me like, yeah, that's exactly what happened. Like, you're in high school, you're in college, and you're like, it's almost organic that you're going to make friends. Right. And then after that time, life starts happening and you dig into like, whoa, these are moments. And it's, as I reflect in my friendships, I was always the baby, because in our last episode, Karryll and I talked about how we were the youngest, coming into our grades. I was always the baby of the friendships. Like, I always felt like all of my friends took care of me. All of my friends always had snacks
even to this
for
day.
Me. Even to this day, y'all. All of my friends had snacks. All of my friends would have like lunches for me, or they would, they would drive and I would just get in the car. And I think it helped me because I felt so safe being like the oldest in my family. I had a lot of responsibility. So I think I stepped into that role just with grace. And I was like, I deserve this and I'm about to take it. There were some moments that I pushed the envelope and I was like, well, it should be about me, like what I want to do. But I really appreciated that about my friendships, that like they covered me is how I felt. And I remember with Karryll, with you in particular, I remember thinking, Carol's so protective. Like, I don't know why. Like, y'all, if there were other people that like I was friends with, or like I would tell Karryll about, she would ask me so many questions about them that I would then begin to question them myself. Like, well, maybe I would be like, well, maybe they aren't a good person for me to be friends with. Because
I just gave you some things to think about.
Yeah, she's so good at that. But that's how I knew we were going into sisterhood. And that happened organically for me, where I wasn't thinking about it because I was just like, honey, this is family. At this point, like, this is family. And that's what my brain did with you, is that I saw you as family. I didn't even, like, I have family members, but they never entered into that space. And so, yeah, I just automatically, my brain was like, this is a safe space and this is family. And speaking of Karryll talking about relationships, like, y'all, she carried me through a very interesting, I don't even know the right word for it. It wasn't interesting. It was a really bad relationship. And Karryll was there to like carry the load of what I couldn't even carry myself. And so that in itself was like, I was like, if you need a kidney, I'm there.
All I know is that to this day, if I see that person, it's on site. Okay. It is on
and
site.
You know who you are.
You yeah. Hold on. You do know who you are.
You know who you
to
are.
This day.
So,
and that's,
yeah.
Never mind.
And so to that, like, that bridged the gap for me. That was like, there is not, I like, it solidified. I never, like, from that point, I will never have a doubt in the type of person that you are. Yeah.
Don't make me cry on this episode.
I know, right? I was like, oh gosh, I'm getting teary right here.
Don't do it, okay? We got to have.
Okay, I'm not going to do it.
Okay,
I'm not going to do it. But I'm just saying we will probably shed some tears on this because, we want to be open with y'all. But yeah, that did it for me. So sisterhood was definitely, that was just what it had to be. So
And something you said made me think literally in this moment. So you were saying how you were the baby or were like the baby in your friendship sisterhoods
Yes.
and people took care of you.
Mm-hmm.
And you were saying like because you were the oldest and you kind of had to like look out for your younger siblings and such. And so I feel like I'm the opposite. Like I am the baby, but I like to take care of everything. Like I'm like, let's make sure we're together, y'all. What y'all need? You know, I got my bags inside of bags inside of bags. So if you need some Motrin, or if you need I don't know, some tissue, if you need some feminine products, I got
you guys. I would leave out the house with nothing but my car keys. Car keys is all I would leave with. And half the time I was like, Dominique, you don't even have a backpack. Like, look like you're going to school.
Get on my nerve.
I would show up to
an event. I only got one left.
And I would be like, Carol, I have a headache.
No.
And she would give me Motrin. And I'd be like, do you have ibuprofen? Or do you have Tylenol instead? Here. And she would pull it out. It was CVS. We used to call her CVS. She always had products that we needed every single time.
I got bug spray in my purse. I got baby wipes. I got hand sanitizer wipes. I got Clorox 2 wipes, the travel kind. I got everything.
Should I say it one more time? Every time she had our bags.
Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So from our sisterhood, how do you lean on your sister friends? Like, what was the evolution of sister friends? And I feel like we talked about that a little bit, just with like, I leaned on you with my relationship because it was just, I couldn't keep myself up. Like I literally had to lean on you. Mm-hmm. And I was forced into that. And I think that allowed me to trust and like trust wholeheartedly. And it built the foundation of trust for me. Like you were saying earlier when you were like, you can't be my sister. We're not related. Like I remember thinking that too. And I remember thinking like when people throw around the word best friend, I would always be like, you're not my best friend. Like I have a solid group of best friends, you know.
I'm real particular about those labels.
Terms. Yes. And so I think, just learning to trust was my big thing. And I learned to trust you all because we went through some things. And like with our other friend, like we went through some things with our family. And that, I think in those moments where it's like a pressure cooker, you're either going to lean on these people or you're going to explode. And like, if I did not lean on you with that toxic relationship, I would have exploded. Yeah. Like I know for sure I would have exploded. And I appreciate that so much because I think for Black women, we miss that. Like we miss that part because like, and I'm not saying that I made the best choices in my relationships. Let's just put that out there. But you never judged me. And I think that piece where like I wasn't judged allowed me to just be in that space of it felt like crap. It felt like crap. And I think that's the deciding factor between a friend and a sister friend. Like how are they holding a space for you? Is it a judgmental space? Is it a space that has shame? Or is it a space where they're like, I don't care what you did, I'm going to bat for you.
Yeah.
And that's how you literally like,
and literally, even sometimes when you wrong. Because
sometimes when I'm wrong, exactly. Like you'll go to bat for me and then circle back and be like, Dummy, why did you say that?
Listen.
And I'm like, but you would get
it. Even in our earlier days, like one of our friends was dead wrong. Okay. When we used to go out clubbing and stuff.
Oh yes.
Dead wrong. And it didn't matter because I had her back. And we was
Yes.
fighting in the club. And then we
Yeah.
got kicked out the club. I'm like,
And you guys, I was so like in La La Land. I'm sitting on the dance floor dancing, and I thought they were behind me because that's how we walked in. I walked in first, and they were behind me. I turned around, and they were no longer there. So I was like, something has happened. So I run back up to the front, my little self. Once I got done with the dance, I ran back up to the front, and I was like, "Hey, where are my friends?" And Karryl's outside, and I said, "Well, that's the end of this outing. Time for me to leave."
And
I went outside and I found out what happened. But Karryl's right. I was on the team of my friends. And when we get to the car, we'll discuss what we could have done differently. But in front of people, oh, we're a one-man band. We don't play. In front of people, we're going to throw down. And Karryll threw down. And we all got kicked out essentially because I wasn't going to stay in there without my friends. And y'all, this is happening like in major cities. This is not, we used to club in big cities. So.
Cities where things happen, okay?
Cities where things happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when I think about like, how do I lean into my sister friends?
Yeah, how do you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it was something that you said that made me kind of summarize how I do lean into my friends. And it was the piece about like not feeling judged or when I share something, I don't feel like you're judging me. And so for me, when I lean into my friends, like if I feel comfortable with you, like if you're my friend, if you're my sister friend, my sister, we have a sisterhood, then I feel like I don't have to filter whatever I say. Share from my world. Like if it's something that I'm going through, like I can just share it with you and not feel like I am being judged or that I'm looking like I'm a bad person or something like that. And honestly, you know how sometimes people will say like, you can go to certain friends for certain things. I feel like most of my friends I can go to for almost anything. And that's how I know it's a sisterhood. Like it doesn't matter, you know, what the issue is or what the topic is or whatever. I know that I can come to you and I can get what I need as far as like feedback or just let me vent or whatever. So I would say like that's how I was able to lean into my friendships or sister friends. Because I don't have to filter and I don't feel judged when I do share. And I feel like I can come to almost like if you can't answer, I call somebody else. And then you know what I mean? Like it's okay. So
yeah, that's true. And I operate the same way. Like I think my 4 closest friends, I can tell y'all all of the things. Because I think life is hard enough and it's exhausting sometimes. So for me, if I feel like, oh, I can't tell this person this thing, but I can tell them this thing, it means I'm struggling with trust. That's just how it's interpreted for me. But I had to get to the point where like I trust myself. And then because I used to do that, I used to withhold information because I wasn't sure how it was going to be received. And that was just because I didn't trust myself. And so now I trust myself way more than ever before. And I'm able to share like all of the things that I'm struggling with you all. But with you specifically, Karryll, I felt like I had to learn how to be a friend that you needed because you're so strong and because you operate from a place of like, I'm going to take care of this. I'm going to set this. I'm going to set that. And so you would do things before I could even like get in there to do things. And y'all, some of the times I was just like, I don't know what to do, because I was playing that young role. But yeah, I had to learn how to like be a step ahead of you in terms of like, I know Karryl's path and I know what she likes. I know what she's going to do on this day. I know what she's going to do on this day. And so I would try to like be a step ahead, like with birthday gifts, or like just, you know, planning outings with you, or surprising you with something. Just like being a step ahead. Or like when we're on the phone, like I can hear in your voice if like something's not right. And when Karryll does tell you something, you're like, stop everything, put it down and listen. Because if you don't, this is a moment that's going to tap into like you building a bond, because you're not just walking around sharing freely, which I think that's why I admire you as a friend, as a sister.
Why are you trying to give me all these shout outs?
But that's just the truth. Like that's how it's evolved for me.
Okay.
Yeah. So from sister friends with us, what about growing up with your mom? Like, what did you see with your mom? Did Vanessa have sister friends?
Nessa did, and I didn't realize it until I started looking at you all as my sisters, like sister friends. Now, my mom is one of 4. She's the oldest.
Okay.
And she didn't need no sisters because she had them. Blood sisters.
Yeah.
But she did. Like she had, and it's kind of like me, like she had her high school sister friends, or not even just high school, from like elementary sister friends. And then she has her college sister friends. And then she has her, I would say like married, while she was married, sister friends. So she has like 3 groups of sister friends. And every one of them, I basically call them aunt. Like that's my auntie.
Yeah.
You know,
that's like how we are.
Yeah. And their children are like my cousins.
Yeah.
You know, even though they're not blood, that's family. That's, you know, we're cousins, and we grew up together doing different things. Like when you see baby pictures, they're in. Remember the other day you asked me for a picture with my mom? And looking back, I'm like, I don't have pictures of just, you know, her, because we were surrounded by these sister friends growing up with their kids, and, you know, spending birthdays, and even some, I would say like, not really like vacation, but like outings with them. And so they're in all these pictures, and I'm just like, wow, like this is it. I feel like it's come full circle, where it's like, okay, she started it, and it wasn't even like she was teaching me it, but I learned from her, like, okay, this is what you look for in friends or in sister friends. And, you know, even now, like one of our friends got 3 little cubs now. And like those is my nieces and nephews.
Yeah.
Niece and nephews, you know? And like even my other friend, she has a son. Like that's my nephew. Every birthday, Christmas, he getting something, even though she don't believe in Christmas, and she know who she is. Christmas is magical.
Okay, but I agree with her.
Let's not
Christmas
forget
is commercial.
Let's not forget our trip to Chicago.
Okay, keep
in
going.
the wintertime. You thought it was magical.
Yeah, it was magical.
Okay, so stop it. And so so I see my mom with these women, and they are more than just friends. Like, and even though they may not talk every day or all the time or see each other all the time, they pick right back up where they left off. And those are her sister friends. So,
well, Teresa's a little different.
Wasn't ready for that one.
My mom has friends, right? But they're friends from when she was married with kids.
Okay.
So like she doesn't go back to college and high school. My mom was friendly and nice to everybody. She was like my mom would be like, the president of the student union. Is that what it was called? The student union? Not
Or
student union, but like
student SGA, like student government.
Student government. My mom would
She
be the president of student.
was?
No. She was not, but I'm saying that's how you would see her. Like she
Okay.
spoke to everybody. She was friendly to everybody.
Okay.
So you were like, I want to be her friend. But she was like, I don't need you as a friend. so it was this and I think that comes from the fact that she comes from such a big family and there were so many different dynamics and she's the youngest. My mom is the baby.
Okay.
And so she has an older sister and then she has an older brother. And my mom was just like, you know, they would do their thing and they would take care of her as like as if they were the parents and she was the baby. And so I think she just learned how to play with herself and that like continued into, I love people, but I don't need to have them as friends all the time. And so when we were growing up, we had like solid group of my mom had a solid group of sister friends that I would call them, where if like we needed to be picked up from school, they would come, or we would go to their house, or like when my mom had my brother, I would go to one of her friends' house to spend the night. So, but it was only 3 of them.
Okay.
Like only 3 of them. And this was, you know, after she was married with a child that
I feel like I know the 3
sisters. Yeah, you probably do know the 3. Yeah. And so one developed from work and that's my mom. And she doesn't talk to them every day. She's not the one where she has to be on the phone with them. Like you said with Vanessa, they pick right back up where they left off. And so I saw that, but it wasn't like, whereas for me, I was super social and I was like, Mom, I need to have some friends. Like I want friends. Like I want friends all the time. And my mom was like, girl, you don't need too many friends. You're all right.
she's actually right about that. Cause sometimes it can be a lot. It can be a lot of work.
I just wanted to have friends on every corner. Okay. But that didn't work. So yeah, that's how it panned out for her.
Okay.
So from sisterhood with Black sisters, primarily.
Black women.
Yes. How have you explored friendship with women who are not Black?
Why you ask me that first?
Because.
Okay.
You can handle it.
So I'll say this. When I was in the 3rd grade. Okay, so my family moved from Detroit to Ann Arbor when I was like going into the 2nd grade.
Okay.
And even though like, I feel like if I was older, it would have been more of a culture shock for me. But when I was younger, it wasn't that much of a shock because I was still able to like develop friends. And so when we moved into our house, I had a best friend who was a little white girl. I don't want to say her name because I don't want to just put her out on the spot.
Serious?
I think I held this from you because I was like, I want to give you the shock factor.
Yes, this is what you were holding back.
This
Are
is
you
what I
serious?
was. Yes, she was my best friend. We would
hang
out.
Best friend?
My best friend. And we were best friends throughout elementary school. And then middle school, I don't know if she moved. I think she moved and then she ended up going to a different school, but we were still kind of cool. Okay. But it was because of the distance that we weren't able to like keep up. But child, when I was outside playing, it was always, you know, she and I playing together. Like I remember one time she would come over to the house, and this was like when we first moved in, and we didn't have any grass in our front yard. It was just dirt, and they had to come out and put the sod later. But she like was walking through our yard, and her shoe got stuck in the mud. And I remember calling her. I'm like, "Is that your shoe here?" And I just remember my mom kind of looking at us like, "Lord have mercy, y'all are a piece of work." Because we would just get into like we would go on adventures with our bikes.
Oh
and
my
like gosh. She was my best friend. And I feel like that's kind of when it started, like me exploring friendships with women who are girls who were not Black. So like I had her, and then I had another friend who, like, her background, like her parents were from India, and like we would hang out. Like her mom owned a oh, what do you call it? Like she was a tailor, and
Okay.
or a seamstress. And so
Okay.
she had a shop right around the corner from us. And I would go around the corner, ride my bike, and I would play with her and her sister in the back of her mom's shop. And, you know, we would just hang out. So I had a number of girls who were not Black, who were friends, who were, you know, I would consider them friends. Like, one definitely was a best friend, and the other one was like a good friend. And then even as we grew up, like we weren't close anymore, but we still like, hey, how's it going? You know, we could talk and it would be
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Now evolving to middle school was different for me because I feel like we had more Black girls in our middle
Yes.
school than
Yes.
maybe my elementary. And so, and even in elementary, I still had, you know, friends who were Black girls, but I found myself gravitating more towards them in middle school and in high school, just because I feel like we had more in common. Maybe even because we were like doing activities outside where we were able to like develop those friendships, and then, you know, we see each other in school and then pick right back up. But then I would say like in high school, it kind of went back to my, you know, exploring friendships with women or girls from different backgrounds, because like I was in different things. Like when I was in high school, I took Latin. And so I was kind of one of the only ones in that class. And so I made friends there who were not Black. And then track, you know, Westfield recruited anybody who could run.
Yeah. We
Long
had
distance, sprinters, you
Yeah.
know, so we have friends there. And then even like I'm trying to think like what kind of organizations. We were part of like different organizations where we were able to meet different girls. Like remember we used to go out to lunch with like girls who you wouldn't necessarily think that we'd be friends with, but we developed it
because
like
our classes.
because
We
our
were
classes
with them in classes. Like
exactly.
I had AP classes, and I remember like sitting with them, and we developed friendships. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. And
That's true.
And so I was able to kind of, you know, explore that, not intentionally. It was really organic. And you know, even to this day, like I'm still friends with these same girls on, or women on Facebook. I mean, we don't talk like that, but it's nice to keep in contact or keep updated about, you know, what they have going on in their lives. And I may like put a little comment under a post or something like that, and we'll engage that way.
Yeah.
But if I were to say like, if I have any women who are sister friends who are not Black, I ain't got that like that. It's not like that. And, you know, you and I have talked off camera, off recording about this. And my mindset is like, even though I do have women who are not Black, who I consider to be friends, I have always been guarded with letting them in completely. And it is because.
So is it safe to say they stay in the spot of friends?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, because we can talk about some personal things.
So they enter into the best friend stage, or no? Like they kind of go back and forth, or is it just like you talk about things with them because of the area that you're in. So like, say it's a friend that you know from work. Do you only talk about work stuff with them, or
No.
say it's a friend that you know? Okay.
No, I have
So
a
then
friend. I have a friend
it's
from
kind of
work, and
teetering outside of the friendship zone, right?
it is, but there are certain things that we just don't talk about because in
Okay,
my
that's
mind,
fair.
I'm not ready yet. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I think for me, I protect myself because I don't want to be disappointed in what they may say in response
Mm-hmm.
to a sensitive
Mm-hmm.
topic.
Yeah. And
Because
that disappointment is real.
yes, yes.
Yeah. That disappointment is real. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off. You said because you what?
No, it's okay. And it's because, what was I going to say? Well, it's because I don't want to be disappointed and because I value the friendship so much that I'm just going to stay away from that and like avoid talking about that. And even though some of them, they try to tap on those certain topics, and I'm just like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm scared. I'm gonna go the other way. I'm gonna change the
And
subject.
let's just let our audience in to know like what topics are we talking about?
Can you say it? Because I can't say it. Can you
We're
say it?
talking about the treatment of Black people. We're talking about why Black Lives Matter. We're talking about, I think for myself, I'm not speaking for Karryll, but sometimes when we're in these relationships, in these friendships with white women, they get tunnel vision and they
Yes.
just see us as one Black girl who is not like them.
Yeah.
And even though they don't say that with words, their actions show it.
Mm-hmm.
So here's an example of that. If something was happening in our society where let's say the person that we're friends with has a child who may struggle with, I'm just going to keep it light, y'all, may struggle with allergies. And we see these studies that pop up about allergies all over the place. And they're talking about allergies are doing this, allergies are taking over. Like, we have to address the issue of allergies because it's taking kids out. Kids are dying. Kids are not, feeling safe with these allergies. And me, as a Black person, I go back to my friend who has a child who struggles with allergies, and I don't say anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I just continue talking like, how's it going? How's life happening? Mm-hmm. What's happening? Did you, dancing around what it is. And what Karryll is talking about is she doesn't want to step into that space where let that person in to a point mm-hmm. where you're like, you must ask me about the allergies. Mm-hmm. You have to ask me about the allergies because it's all around. And instead there's this tunnel vision where it's like, Karryll and Dominique are Black women, but I don't see them like them. Mm-hmm. And so I know that they're not like them. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to ask them about the allergies because mm-hmm. then, that opens up a whole nother box of discomfort for them. I don't know what it is, but that's what we're talking about when Karryll is saying she doesn't want to go to that space to be disappointed, because when you step into that space and the person says nothing, mm-hmm. then you're let down. And as Black women, it's almost like we wear this crown of beauty, mm-hmm. but then also that crown gets heavy sometimes. Mm-hmm. And we're expected to have this abnormal strength, which I don't know where that came from. And when friends who are not Black say like, I just adore you. I just love you. I've heard that thousands of times. I just love you. I just adore you. Love and adoration, like those expire if you're not engaging with me to see. And I'm going back to my, the analogy that I use. If you can't see that my child has allergies. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we're talking about. And what Karryll has said further is that she just stays guarded so that the hurt or the disappointment doesn't happen.
Right. And it was something I wanted to add on to what you were talking about with the tunnel vision. Because honestly, when I heard you, like when you started talking about tunnel vision, and how they just see you. The other part that I would add onto like the tunnel vision is that I have been in situations where there have been racial issues come up, and say it's like a protest or, you know, something going on nationwide and like on the news or whatever. And I've been in a discussion with a white woman, and she, I would say, had tunnel vision in regard to, okay, so why is this happening? Like, why are they just doing, like, why are they rioting or whatever, something like that. And I remember just kind of looking like, you can't see past what just that action is. You know, it goes deeper than just rioting or, you know, looting or whatever. It's deeper than that. And so when I hear that kind of response, I'm just like, okay, you ain't ready. Like, you're not there. And and me engaging in a conversation with you is not worth the exhaustion that I'm going to experience, because it would have to consist of me doing a lot of explaining and a lot of teaching that is not in my ministry. It's not in my spirit. I don't have it. And if you if you can't figure it out or like do the work that's needed to understand what's underneath the surface, I can't. I'm tired.
Yeah. So. I had someone say to me that I should teach them. I also had someone say to me, this was a white man, and he said I should teach him. And then a white woman said, who I once considered a friend, she said, I don't have time to do that work. And I said, then there's nothing else that I can say. But she allowed it to come out of her mouth. And I know that that's something that is a thought. And she allowed that to come out of her mouth. And I said to her, my response to her was, you know, any relationship takes work. Any relationship takes work. Like, I had to work on myself to be friends, to be in friendship and sisterhood with you. If you're not willing to work on yourself, then your friendships or your relationships, just think of it like that. Like, I, for me, on my side, I want to see more Black women challenge their white relationships to say, you have to do more work to come up and see me. You have to. And it's going to suck. And it's also going to mean you're going to lose some friends. I'm just be honest, because I've lost some.
Child.
But
she always got a story
it's
for
worth
me.
It's worth it. It's worth it.
Oh, yes.
So my friendships with white women have been different. But similar to Karryl's, I didn't know this when you revealed the best friend at a young age. I also had a little best friend and a little white girl, and we would hang, and I say white girl lovingly to our white listeners. And we would hang out, and we were living on North Campus because my dad was in dental school. And so there was this little sandbox that we would always play in. And I had a troop of white kids around me. It was a little white girl. I can't remember their names. And then there was a white boy that I used to always play with. And there was one other white boy. And like, he would hold my hand and we would just like walk. And we would play in the sandbox. And I have a picture of that. I'm going to see if I can find it so we can add it. But yeah, that was my earliest. And I think as kids, you're like, I saw that we were different because I was dark skinned. So I saw the difference. But I also felt that it was coming from a good space. And I felt safe being in that space. And so growing up, you all know I went to private schools. I went to Catholic school. That was an experience that was traumatic for me in some senses. And I say that because I was called the N-word. I was told that my shoes that I had on were N-word shoes. And yes,
do your mama know this?
yes, she knows this. This is why I left and went to public
Oh,
schools.
oh my
And
God.
the school held it like I told them, but I told them, you know how when something traumatic happens, it's kind of like a delayed, and to me, that was traumatic. It's kind of
Yeah.
like a delayed response, and then you tell someone after. And that's how it was for me. And his parents had money and were contributing to the Catholic name, and it what nothing was really done about it. And interestingly enough, and so that was my experience at Catholic schools. Like growing up, there was one other Black family that went there, and I like clung to them because I was like, these are the only Black people that I see. And so my experiences with white people was not friendly, and it wasn't
Mm.
healthy because I didn't see myself in them, and they were not seeing me truly. Like I remember going to their houses, and like I went swimming and my hair needed to be conditioned and washed in a whole different way. And I was just like, okay, I'm just going to stick this hat on. Like, and no one was saying like, hey, Dominique, what do you need? Like, how can we
Mm.
help? You know, there wasn't that support or care in the fact that, oh, my daughter has a Black friend and she's coming over. I want to make sure we have the things that she needs. And so I
Mm.
just knew that that was how white people were moving in my space, and I responded accordingly. And I, like Karryll said, I built up that armor, and I did not trust them in it. Like from once I left Catholic school, once I left private school after that incident, I was like, I'm not trusting them. And so when I
Wow.
went to, that explains why when I went to public schools, I was like, I need to be around the Blackest people I can find,
Okay.
because I was like, in private school, I felt like my Blackness was trying to be stripped all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
even the Black kids that were there, like, we're all being stripped.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like we couldn't reach out to one another because we were in survival mode,
Right.
literally. Like, I think I had asthma then. And if you know, like your trauma wounds are just going to come up when they can. And that was part of my wounds, is that I couldn't breathe.
Remember you, yes, because you
I
said
had
to do them.
asthma so bad, y'all.
Yes, you said to do
So
those
bad.
treatments.
I used to have to do treatments. I used to have to do inhalers. And then I used to like fake sick so I wouldn't have to go to school. Like, I think I did it like 3 days. And I would only go to school for like
Wow.
2 days out of the five. It was a really rough time for me. And like to think that these people were doing this in the name of God, I was done. I was like,
Yeah.
this is how religion is set up.
Mm.
I don't want anything to do with this.
Mm.
And so I'm sure there are some Catholics who are white who don't believe in that, but my experience was that they did.
Mm.
And so, yeah, once I transitioned to public schools and I saw myself, I saw people that supported me, um, and that were loving on me, I was like, I can do this. And I mean, my asthma got better. Like, I was able to breathe. Like, literally, I
Wow.
was able to breathe. And I think I'm just now like connecting the dots to that, to how bad my asthma was when I was in private schools. And so yeah, it took my dad a little bit of time to get on board, because in the Bahamas, it was a Catholic upbringing. Um,
Mm.
and that was from whites coming over, the British coming over, and just, putting their mark and their stamp on this entire Black race. And that
Mm.
to me just doesn't make sense. But they believed in it so heavily that when my dad came here, he was like, private schools it is, Catholic schools it is. Um, Without even investigating or being curious about
Mm.
what their beliefs were here.
Mm.
And if he knew better, he would have done better. And my mom went along with it because she was like, okay, maybe this is, a good thing to do. And so, yeah, so I transitioned out of that. That was when my public school time came along. And when I got done in high school, I was like, I don't want to see anybody white. I only, if when I found out that a Black college existed, I was like, Sign me up. I only want to be around
Wow.
Black people. And for 4 years, I get to do that. Oh, you couldn't tell me a thing. So coming out of high school, I was like, I'm not keeping in contact with any of my white friends. Like, I was very intentional with being like, I only want to be around Black people because this is an experience that I'm only going to have once. And I know that when I come out of this HBCU, when I come out of Hampton, I'm going to have to go back into a white world. So why not absorb this now? And that's what I did. And I sucked it in. And granted, there's always a balance that has to happen, but it nourished me. It nourished me fully. And then when I came into adulthood, I had to enter back into understanding and navigating the white world. And that was challenging.
Yeah.
And so Karryll and I have talked about in the past 3 years with COVID, I really found my voice with how I want to engage with my white friendships. And it was a hard conversation for me with them. It was a hard conversation first for me to accept in myself that had to happen. And then it was a hard conversation for me with them. And then it was a hard conversation when I explained it to my Black girlfriends, because they were like, you're crazy. And nobody is putting in that kind of time at all. Why would you put in that kind of time, Dominique? It doesn't matter. And I was like, no, I'm going to give them a shot. And so what I'm talking about specifically is the Black Lives Matter movement. When that happened, again, it was the allergy. It needed attention. And I had to have people around me who were going to see that. And so I'm a yoga teacher. I'm in the yoga community a lot. And I had this core group of yoga teachers, yoga friends. We called each other yoga sisters, y'all. Like, yeah, Karryll, we called each other sisters. And so I leaned in heavy on them. And I was like, hey, it was just happening. George Floyd, like, you couldn't help but to feel it unless you were like,
it was
even
everywhere.
if you were blind,
It was
you would feel
everywhere.
it energetically. Right. And so I leaned into them and I was like, hey, what's going on? Because they didn't say anything. So I was like, hey, what's going on? Like, how are you guys feeling about this? Like, what? And I advise this to our white listeners. It's not our job as Black women to come to you and say, hey, what's going on? When the allergy is around us, it's not a Black person's job to come to you and say, hey, how are you feeling? It's an opportunity for you to go to them. And if they say nothing to you, then you go back and you try again another day. It's stepping into discomfort. So I said to them, hey, what's going on? Because I really, like Karryll said, I valued their friendships and I valued them as people. And I wanted to believe that they would nourish me and that they would come back and show solidarity with me. And when I said that, it was like silence. It was, I don't really know what to say. And we're yoga teachers. We teach all the time and we're talking all the time. And before COVID happened, we would talk all the time, always had something to say. So the fact that there was minimum words, it set the tone for me. And so I started to take notice, and like throughout that time, I would reach out to them individually. Some of them kicked back hard. Others were like, I'm just struggling. And in my mind, I was like, what do you think I'm doing? Not singing bird songs. And so I stayed with it. And eventually I talked to each and every one of them. I was like, listen, if you're going to have me as a Black friend, you have to see me as a Black friend. You have to see me as a Black woman. You have to understand that I'm part of a Black culture that is suffering right now, and I need your support. And if you cannot do that, we cannot be friends. And it was just as clear as that. And on my end, I was able to use the yoga culture and what we had learned through yoga, which is like, you love everybody. And I was like, I'm not feeling loved right now. I have to feel seen. And it was a rough series of conversations. And I got to give it to them. 3 of them really stepped up, really, really stepped up. And I started to feel more comfortable with them. And I told them, I was like, I don't want to have to code switch with y'all. Like, I don't want to have to speak one way and then withhold something. Remember what I was saying earlier, Karryll? Like, if I'm withholding, I don't trust you. And so I already have that in me with white women. Is like, I'm stepping into this withholding because I don't fully trust you yet. And so I told them this. I was like, if I have to step into this, and this is a yoga space, it's supposed to be a safe space, we're supposed to love one another, and I'm withholding, that's too much energy for me to give out every time I want to be your friend. I don't have to do it. And so I chose myself, and they reached out, and yeah, it was very interesting, and it was hard, but I think it was a good move.
Well, I tell you right now, it's been a ride, because I've been along that ride from a distance with you.
She has.
You share with me what these conversations look like, and I'm just like, wow.
Yeah.
I'm not there yet.
Yeah. And I will say Karryll she's getting more of like, because Karryll had an incident with someone, and I was like, no, you need to let her know what she did and how it was wrong. And you need to tell someone.
Oh.
And this was like a work trip. And she went back, you guys, and she did that. And she was like,
yes,
yeah,
I
they
remember.
agree.
I was like, what you talking about? But yes, child.
I was so proud of her. And I think, I don't know where all of this voice has come from in me. Maybe the pandemic just had it sitting and brewing. But that's my wish and my hope for Black women, is that we start to release the load onto other people. If we're going to have white women in our lives, that's great. They can absolutely be sisters, but they have to be sisters that are carrying the load. They have to be sisters that are understanding the responsibility that they have when you have a Black friend. It's just like when I have friends who are from other cultures, I have to understand my responsibility to learn about their culture. Like, I have some friends from India. I had to learn my role and my responsibility when I stepped into their house. You got to leave your shoes outside. When I'm stepping into, break bread with them, it's done in a different way. When Karryll loves Ethiopian food, you guys, when we go to Ethiopian restaurants, we're stepping into a culture. And so we have to respect that, and we have to understand that. And you're stepping in and out of relationship all the time. So you can't just sit back and expect your one Black friend to just go along with what's happening. No. And you have to step outside of that and say, I need to get some more Black friends. And I need to find out about what they need from me, especially if you're in a work environment where there's only one or two people of color. That's pressure in itself. Like, step into their world and see what it's like. So my hope for Black women is that we release the load.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah. And so you guys, we just continued this conversation, but Karryll, I think you talked about it. Have you ever been apprehensive to be vulnerable with these or other women? And I think you have been. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct.
And go.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, you were saying how you don't trust them yet.
Yeah.
Like, you don't trust them. You don't want to be in a position for them to let you down.
Right.
And you guys, when you're in relationship with someone, when you're in friendship with someone, that's not friendship. Like, at least to me, it's not. Like, if I have a friend who doesn't feel like they can be their authentic self with me, I got to do some reflecting. And these are just people who I consider friends. And I've heard some white women say, oh, my best friend is Black. And we haven't had these conversations. And I'm like,
that's not a friend.
Let's check the temperature.
Yeah. I actually I think I can say this. I had a student in my class who said, her best friend was Black, and she had never heard about some of these Black issues, because I teach a multicultural psychology class, which is really kind of like a lot of Black issues in there. And she was saying how, like my best friend, she's never talked about this. And then I remember we were talking about the topic of code switching, had the discussion. She went, talked to her friend about it, and her friend was like, yeah, I do it with you all the time. Like, oh, and God. And she was so hurt. She was so she was like, I thought we were friends. Like, I wanted you to feel comfortable around me. I don't know where that friendship ended up, but she was shocked.
Yeah.
And it's it's sometimes it's an eye-opening experience when you think you have this type of relationship with somebody who's from a different background, but because, and I don't know if I want to say it's like selfish, like we have to be in their world, but their world is dominant. And so we, as Black women, oftentimes have to, or feel the pressure of adapting to this world to avoid consequences. And I don't mean it in just a negative way, but just something that could happen if we don't adapt,
Yes.
Like, I know absolutely. I remember when I was in grad school, I was in a situation where, like, people who know me know, like, I'm crazy. Like, that's just who I am. But a lot of times I don't always put on my professional hat until I have to, because that's just not who I am. Like, and I think that's one reason why so many people feel comfortable around me, because I make it a welcoming environment where you don't have to feel like you have to put on some kind of facade or image of yourself. And so I remember the first time I went to a conference with some grad school people and I presented, and I remember this one person, I ain't gonna say who or give any idea of like if it was a male or female.
Okay.
But they looked at me and they were like, and I'm like, what you looking at? And they were like, oh my God, like you presented so well. Like you're so well spoken. And I was like,
yeah,
what? That's not a compliment. What do you mean by that?
Not at all. Yeah.
Like, what did you think I was just here because they needed a Black face? No, I'm here for a reason. I'm smart.
Yeah.
And I don't always have to display I told you in the last episode, I'm gonna be ignorant all day. But if it's time to switch it up, I know how to switch it up.
Yeah.
So, that's just, and that's an example of what I mean by not wanting to be disappointed, because something so simple, which that person thought they were giving me a compliment, was actually an insult.
Actually, it was.
Exactly. And
can we back up really quick to tell our listeners what is code switching? Because some people may not know.
So, well, actually, I wanted to say that for another episode when we talk about,
okay.
But yeah, let's save that for, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But I mean, I guess I can give like a quick definition, but it's basically when you are in a predominant environment for Black, and honestly, the definition is more specific for Black people. So when you feel like you have to switch up the way that you talk, like your dialect, so that you can fit into whatever the dominant culture is. So like white culture, you switch up how you talk for that. Like, a lot of Black people know how to do that, especially like if we need to talk to somebody in customer service on the phone, we switch it up in a second so we can get things taken care of.
Yep.
But that's gonna be a whole nother episode when we talk about it.
And I also want to add that the title of this podcast is called the Black Women Podcast because we're two Black women, and it's coming from our experience. But it is absolutely an invitation for white women to come to our table and listen, right? And explore. And you can send Karryll and I messages if you have questions. Like, we're offering a safe space, because I had one person, and she's very kind, and she was asking me, she was like, she's white, and she was like, I saw the Black Women podcast, but I was like, is that for me? Like, should I be coming into that? And I was like, absolutely, you can come into that. I was like, if you think about it, we're constantly in a white woman podcast. This world that we're in, the shows that we watch, the language that is spoken, that's a white woman podcast most of the time. A white world podcast, if you want to say it like that. And I don't think people think about it like that. They're just like, they see the Black and they're like, whoa, that's not for me to step into. But it is. It is for you to step into. And it's also for you to educate yourself, so that your Black friends don't have to do all the heavy lifting. I know, like Karryll said, the student that she had, majority of the Black friends that you may or may not have could be code switching. Like, let's just be honest, they could be code switching. And if you have a Black friend who is code switching, they're not being themselves with you. And so that I challenge you to step into their world and say, how can I make this a safer space for you, to where you can be yourself and not feel judged by me? So hopefully those conversations can start.
Yeah. Well said.
Do you have anything else to add about our sisterhoods overall, Karryll?
Only that this is part 1 of us talking about this. Because we have some women lined up ready to share their experience and their stories. So this is part 1 of the Sisterhood Doublemint Twins episode. So
and if you're like, this is an open dialogue, so please leave us comments below. Please send us messages. If you're a white woman and you have Black friends, like, talk to them, have a conversation with them. Black women, talk to your white friends, have a conversation with them, you know, release some of this load and put a little bit of pressure out there. That's gonna be my thing for the year. Release your load. But so we know we're going to get some comments from this episode alone. So Karryll's right to piggyback on what she said. Part 2 is coming with guests. So in the meantime, thank you all for giving us your time on your walk, on your run, in the car, wherever you are listening. We appreciate it. We appreciate it. And shout out to our Pioneer High School crew, like from back in the day. You guys are showing up big time.
Yes.
And my coworkers, Karryll's coworkers,
and family,
our families. Yes. Oh my goodness, family is stepping up. Like the retired ones. Thank you for listening. Y'all are sitting at home listening deep.
Yes.
And our parents, like my dad listened 3 times, y'all.
My parents listened twice. Or I think they listened twice. They listened to it and then they watched it.
Yeah. Therese listened twice. Twice. But thank you. And we're in it, and we riding it out. So thank you for listening again to this episode of the Black Women Podcast. Please remember to follow us on Instagram and Facebook. We are at the Black Woman Podcast on both platforms. And be sure to check out our website, and our YouTube channel is live now. Last time I checked this morning, we had 94 views in 7 days. Like, that is spectacular. And 14 subscribers. Y'all better subscribe. Come on, y'all. Please subscribe to our channel. And until next time, stay safe and give yourself some grace.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.